Hello. Good evening, brothers. Peace. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Kevin, Painkiller, Jimmy, Daniel, Inks, James Merrifield, Drysu. Good evening, everybody. How are you? We are here, as always, on a Sunday night to look at some army lists. Let's start by whose lists we're going to go over. We're going to go over Cal and A, Careful Planning, Chris Bailey, JW, Kevin, Kiefer, and PJ Murray. I'll give it like 1 minute, and if no one else pops into the chat, then we'll start with you, JW, since you are here already. Um, but yeah, how's everyone? You had a good weekend? I have such a headache. One of my kids screamed for about 5 hours today, honestly, not even joking. My wife dropped a nail in the living room and it skittered off somewhere under a bit of furniture or something. We had to spend like 4 hours looking for this fucking nail because our kid's crawling around in the living room all the time. And the kids don't like being ignored for 4 hours, but they couldn't crawl around because there's a fucking nail on the floor. So yeah, I mean, apart from that, I've had a great day. Tough day. Yeah, what a headache I have. How? I mean, it's all right now. But yeah, it's been tough. Cool. Yeah, but apart from that, great. Good weekend. I hope you all had it. And who's going out for Halloween tomorrow? Anyone dressing up as a blood angel? If you are, share the costume with me. I will not be going out. Alright, JW. You're up first. The reason we turn up is how real you are. Says Jason. Yeah, I mean, that's like a character flaw of me, dude. I'm just honest. I think honesty is, yeah. It's what's the phrase? Honesty is the best policy. Yeah, I mean, it is a phrase. Cool. All right, JW. Sorry, I'm down for an army list this Sunday, but I couldn't submit the. Yeah, so I think this is your updated list. Good evening, Mike. How are you? I did raid you after my stream last night, Mike, but I don't think I had very many viewers when I raided you, so hopefully you got picked up a few. Okay, we get Chapter Master. He has Infernal Pistol and a Relic Blade. And a jump pack. Cool. We got Mephiston, who has Unleash Rage, Blood Boil, Wings. I keep taking Quickening on Mephiston, but I honestly think Quickening is a bad spell to have on Mephiston. I don't think I'm going to take it anymore going forward. Blood Boil is also kind of a bad spell because you have to basically pass the psychic test twice, because you have to like roll a psychic test, then you have to roll over their toughness. So maybe Bloodlands, and like no one fucking plays Bloodlands, no one ever talks about it. Let me bring this over here. But maybe Bloodlands needs to be the power, because my experience with Quickening and Bloodlands, sorry, Blood Boil is pretty shit on both of them actually. Bloodlands. You draw an 18-inch line, warp charge of 6, and then roll a d6 for each model. The center of the line passes over, and a 5+ that model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Man, it's pretty shit as well, isn't it? Okay, I mean, I guess Blood Boil, but you just have to be aware if you're targeting anything with decent toughness, it's kind of crappy. The Blood Angel psychic powers aren't the greatest, are they? Unleash Rage wins, and then beyond that, there's not much choice. Ivan, good evening. Carter, hello. Yeah, so obviously Mephiston standard beyond that, and then you've got the Sangre Priest who is standard beyond that. I would have loved to see. We got. I was gonna say we got Rights of War. Yeah, we've got it down here in the Sangre Ancient. All right, so the characters are fine. No CP spend on the characters really. Assault intercessors and coursers and infiltrators. I mean, all 3 troop choices make sense. They're the best of what we have available. Infiltrators to hold the backfield and screen, which is nice. You got a Death Company with just the chainswords for 105 points. I think they're decent at 105 points. I kind of like them. You got the Death Company with Thunderhammers, and you've gone full on 5 Thunderhammers here. You got the Death Company with Infernal and Power Swords. Again, I like this Death Company. I think it's good. You got the Ancient who has Rights of War and Wrath of Baal, so obviously your jump units are moving an additional 2 inches. You get 7 Sanguinary Guard here, 4 swords, 3 axes. You could probably go 5 swords, 2 axes, but I mean, it's such a minor point. I won't worry about it. We have Vanguard Veterans, a bunch with double lightning claws on the Sergeant with an Infernal Pistol and a Thunderhammer. We don't see too many Vanguard Veterans, but yeah, nice to see Vanguard Veterans still getting some action. Double lightning claw gives them what, 4 attacks per model base, so they can get up to 6 attacks. Yeah, I mean, it costs more now to put the Storm Shield on them, so I think if I was running Vanguard Veterans, I'd probably do this. Double Lightning Claw, 28 points per model, something like that. You then have Inceptors with Assault Bolters. Assault Bolters are fine. The Vanguard Veterans can obviously perform R&D and Relentless Assault. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good point. They're over 5 models, so they can do R&D. Intercessors with bolt guns, I feel, are fine. I kind of liked them before Armor of Contempt, because I used to bring them down in, like, turn 2 when we're in Tactical Doctrine, and then those bolters are -2, so you got, like, 18 shots. Strength 5 -2 on damage. And you can obviously buff them with Descent of the Angels, and you can make a charge afterwards as well. Yeah, I mean, they're fine. They were better when they could perform R&D and stuff like that. A little bit of clear, I guess. Like, Strength 5 isn't terrible. We then have the Eliminator Squad with the Las Fusils, and I assume the Sergeant also has a Las Fusil. Okay. I think you should probably put the Carbine on the Sergeant. Blood Angels win CK Open 75-74. Where's CK? Kansas City? I don't know. I don't know like geography all that well. And then we have the Whirlwind with the Castellan launcher. Okay. Cool. Is it a known player who was playing the Blood Angels? Where did you spend that? So you put two. You spent 2 CP on the Sangre Ancient because you gave him. Oh no, made him the Warlord. All right, shit. He's got Soul Ward and Rights of War and Wrath of Baal. I'm not. I used to be okay with like spending 3 CP on I sort of used to be okay spending 3 CP on this like Sangre Ancient, but now I think that like if this was my list, I'd probably put Soul Warden on like the Captain or something, or the Chapter Master. Just because that's a lot to lose on a 4 wound character with no invuln save, right? Rights of War and Wrath of Baal together are fine, but I think I would put the Soul Warden on the Chapter Master. He's got more wounds. And I think spreading out your buffs like that is probably for the best. Okay. Like 3 Death Company, they're all good. The Ancient and the Guard and Veterans are good. Eliminators and Inceptors together feel like you're going to be pretty light on Fires of Power. Inceptors with bolters. I mean, they're basically like crap versions of heavy bolters. My experience tells me that heavy bolters don't do a huge amount of damage. Eliminators without move, shoot, move, I guess is fine if you part them in cover, but again, my experience tells me 3 Las Fusel shots don't do a whole heap of damage. There's a set of Forge World Blood Angels Terminator Shoulders on eBay. I do mention those all the time. How much are they selling for? I just bought those new heads like yesterday, so I don't know if I can afford to buy Forge World Blood Angels heads. We have to type Blood Angels. There's one for a fiver. Jeez. You know, that's not bad actually. But this guy has multiple of them? Oh, he's got 3 available? Where's he getting these? Is he breaking down the assault kit? Maybe. Interesting. Um okay. Um I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say about any of the units in the list, right? Like, all the units are useful. In isolation, one squad of eliminators, in my experience, is kind of weak. In isolation, one squad of inceptors is kind of weak. But if you're gonna run like if you're gonna do the like 5 elites with an ancient, then you kind of limit yourself pretty heavily on, you get like 200 points for fire support here. So um, probably prefer the inceptors and eliminators over a single dreadnought. And I was going to say, I guess this army gives up quite a lot of points for no prisoners, right? Because inceptors 9, 15. Then what's that, like 6, 13 plus 15, 28 times 2, 56. 71. Yeah, so I guess you give up 12 points for no prisoners. I mean, that's not bad. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, from what people are saying in the chat, a list not a million miles from this just won a tournament, so finally someone's done it. Interesting. Uh, Personally, I'm not a huge fan of running this. I just think there's a lot of things that counter it right now. But I mean, you can run it, you can do well. Um, Good evening, Hanfin. How you doing? Yeah, Manny's a great player actually. So that's yeah. I don't know, JW. Did you have any questions? What were you worried about with this list? Have you played? Yeah, I assume you've played it a few times. Good evening, Daniel. You played it today into Necrons. Yeah, I mean, Necrons are difficult because of the Eternal Conqueror's double obsec and their secondaries. It's not necessarily oh, I was gonna say, a list like this. I mean, I guess into like double Catan, at least you have this Infernal Pistol squad of Death Company Marines, right? Because that's one of the things that that's one of the reasons, like, I hate not having damage in multiple phases. It struggles into Tyranids. I mean, but Tyranids just got a giant nerf to Leviathan, and everyone was playing Leviathan, right? So like, this list just got a hell of a lot stronger against Leviathan last week with a balanced data slate, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to eat my hat and say someone's finally won it with a all melee list. I mean, good for them. Someone persevered and did it. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to try and do it. I don't find it fun. There's just far too many things that, like, if you come up against a counter into it, I don't know how, I think the things that counter it at the moment are really prevalent, like Sisters of Battle, are just really, really prevalent. When I play, there's always Sisters players at tournaments, multiple of them, and yeah, they just have a bad day. Sisters need a nerf, though, I think. Zerafim and Repentia, they're just too damn strong at killing Marines. I mean, that's maybe just that's maybe just another problem in of itself. The problem is Kraken was a better high fleet and is a lot worse than Leviathan, but it's not a survival way more killy. Yeah, Kraken is an interesting high fleet. I guess we will see. I think we will see a lot more Kraken now. But Leviathan kind of counters Red Thirst pretty heavily, whereas Kraken doesn't counter the Red Thirst. And that's what I was trying to say about when I had my game against Knights last week. If you have a counter for the Red Thirst, like I don't think the Red Thirst should be able to be countered. You know, like I'm fine with transhuman in general. That's an ability. But I think Red Thirst should come like after transhuman. So like most things, you know, like most things that get +1 to wound or whatever. Actually, there's not that many things that give +1 to wound. But if your whole army's super doctrine is +1 to wound, then I think that then I think you shouldn't be able to counter it. But I mean, it's just my opinion. Leviathan is annoying, but you still get the +1 to wound, often be the monsters anyway, to take wounding from 5s to 4s. Yeah, that's true, because most of the monsters have high AP, high toughness, and not many people run powers. Apart from your Thunderhammers, everything else is hitting at like strength 5 and 6. So yeah, you're probably right, actually, JW. Just stuff like Tyrannid Guard and stuff like that before that could only be wounded on 4s. Like now we'll wound them on like 2s and 3s, which I think is a big deal. How do we communicate with you during your list reviews? Asks Chris. Just type in the chat, Chris. I'm here. I'm seeing the chat. While it's your review, I'll do extra. I'll make an extra point of looking for your comment. Okay. Yeah, I think the only thing that I'd really change here, GW, is I'd put Soul Warden probably on my chapter master, just because I don't like dumping everything on an ancient when he. Sangre Ancient isn't that survivable in my opinion. I mean, I guess if you're keeping him in cover, but then if you're keeping him in cover, are you really getting the benefit of Soul Warden? I mean, I guess it depends on how you play Soul Warden / Rites of War. Okay. I feel like 120 points of Bolter Inceptors. Personally, I'd probably prefer a couple of attack bikes, or maybe a squad of Eradicators. I never seem to get that much value out of Eradicators when I play them, so but I do get value out of attack bikes. And one thing that I like about attack bikes is each one is just 2 power level, so you can reserve both attack bikes and the assault intercessors, for example, for 1 CP. And attack bikes coming in and sniping enemies with multi-meltas can be pretty handy. You try and keep them lookout sword. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I suppose that's fine. Yeah. You give up 12 points for no prisoners. You give up 13 points for assassination. But if you're okay with that, then I guess that's that. Yeah, shoot me any other questions you might have, JW. All right, let's move on. Cal and Annie, I saw him sneak into the chat there, so let's check out his list. And this is a 2000.4 CP list. We've got Calixus Assassin. Calixus. I feel like I should know what a Calixus Assassin does. It's the one that can only be hit on 6s. It's the anti-psychic assassin. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I played the Calixus Assassin a bit. I kind of like him. Or her, I think. I think it's a she. I like how she's got fight last. I like how you can't take invulnerable saves against her. I like how she's good at killing psychers. Nightpal says, I'm a massive Dreadnought fan. What Dreadnought would you suggest to get first? Well, that's tough, man. I have Contemptors, I have Redemptors, I have Leviathans. and then regular dreadnoughts. The one that I mean, the one that maybe springs to mind is Librarian Dreadnought, because he's like the very Blood Angel specific one. Beyond that, probably Redemptors seem to get the most play. Contemptors are decent. Leviathans, I don't like them because they're not core, and I don't want to be running a Tech Marine right now. Contemptor or Redemptor is probably the two that are going to get. I mean, I've done videos comparing them at night, so maybe you want to check out some of those videos. But if you search Blood Angels Commander Dreadnoughts, you'll see loads of videos I've done on Dreadnoughts. I played the Leviathan recently, and I don't think it's great right now, unless you're going to run a Tech Marine. And I don't want to run a Tech Marine, I guess, at the moment. So we've got my Mephiston with Shield, Unleash Rage, and Wings. I mean, these are decent powers. We've got Dante as a Warlord, giving up back 1 CP. We've got the Ancient with Rights of War, which is cool. We've got the same troops as the last list, which is absolutely fine. I don't actually know if I know that the Infiltrators, I guess, prevent Demon Deep Strikes. But, like, for the most part, a squad of Incursors and a Whirlwind can screen the backfield. You don't need to have Infiltrators. I mean, maybe Infiltrators give you a tiny bit more reliability. Is it worth 15 points? I mean, maybe. I have Infiltrators. I haven't run them in ages. I think I prefer Incursors just because the extra AP and they're a more offensive type of deployment. When you put down Infiltrators, it feels like you're being very defensive. Okay, we've got Death Company with 3 Infernals and 3 Power Swords. We've got Death Company with 4 Thunderhammers. We've got the third Death Company with 3 Infernals and Power Swords. All right, this is similar to our last list, I guess. We have Oh, you've got the Ancient as well. Okay, and he's also Soul Warden. He's also Wrath of Baal. You've got 2 Sandguard, a 6 and a 5. I really don't like 5 Sandguard. Sometimes I feel like 6 even bounces off the enemy. Like I think 7 is best, but I can get away. I can justify 6. I hate Sangry Guard in less than 6. I really actually prefer 7. That's just my experience from playing. 7 seemed to be the best number, the optimal number. We also have the Hammer Strike in here, which is the Melta Speeder, and then we've got the Whirlwind. I guess the Melta Speeder makes up similar to that last list, rather than have the Eliminators and the Inceptors. We have the Melta Speeder and a Clixus Assassin. I mean, you've got 5 characters, which is gonna probably mean most enemies are gonna take Assassinate against you. What was your comments? Because you left me some comments. Okay. You've grown so much for the channel in the last month, and it's a great community. Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. This is inspired by your takes on Stephen Bock's recent list you covered. The Clixus, love your take on him. My local meta is very psychic heavy. He fights last. And also, if he ever manages to kill a Psyker, you basically instantly generate a command point, right? Because you can use target. You can use a 0 CP strat just to get. And his weapon has like. You can buff the weapon when you're shooting at Psykers, and you can ignore Lookout Sir. So if you've got a psychic heavy meta, then Clixus is great. I wanted to run a Smash Chaplain, having 5 damage potential for 1 mortal, using the Benediction, Artisan of War, Mastercraft, and Mantle of Strength. A lot of people used to use the Bite Captain, and then they put them up in points, and then they made you start with a lot less CP. So I guess now, I think if you want to use like someone that does a bunch of damage in a single turn, I think it has to be Astaroth. I don't think Astaroth is bad, and in some ways Astaroth is a bit like Mephiston, right? You don't need to invest a ton of CP into him, so that's one of the reasons to pick him. We don't start with a whole lot of CP anymore in Nephilim, so... and Astaroth's Warlord trait is actually really useful, right? Because it's Soul Warden, and... I would love Mephiston's Warlord trait to be Soul Warden. It would give you a little bit more of a good... a good, I don't know, a good spread of getting those 5-up feel no pain bubbles. If only the Sangreal Priest took up an elite slot. I mean, you've. I don't know if I'm worried about the Sangreal Priest taking up an elite slot, but I guess if that's what you're worried about. I mean, we already flood our elites, and you kind of done that with 3 Death Company and 2 Sangard. I miss my bike captain's toughness, but Dante has so much utility fighting on death and also giving me the +1 CP. He's more flexible, not getting held up by terrain or screened. Makes 1 less pip of toughness to get me in his list. Yeah, I mean, I can understand taking Dante. If you need CP, then take Dante. I might even run Dante in this tournament that I'm going to next week, just because I need the CP. I don't know if I really rate his fight last or fighting on death. I mean, like, I'd rather my character lived, but I mean, Dante gives CP, so there's that. I dance between a Hammer Strike and a Redemptor. I think if you're going to run just one, I would go with the Hammer Strike. If you're going to run 2, then Redemptor. Steven doesn't run any fire support, but as an assault squad instead. But like you said, melee leaves you vulnerable to gatekeeper lists. Melee does leave you vulnerable to gatekeeper lists. I guess sometimes you can dodge those gatekeeper lists, or sometimes you can beat them with all melee. Yeah, I think having some fire support in there I prefer it. I think is better. This list was built to be flexible enough for your secondary charts. I know I'm vulnerable to assassinate, but it's worth all the buffing to me and hopefully bait opponents into melee where Roland can make the fight last. I like how you have 2 fight lasts. I mean, fight last is pretty powerful. I like how you have Unleash Rage. I like how you have the Ancient. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could probably also hide some of the characters. So maybe Assassinate would be a bit of a trap to pick into you. I wonder if there's a way to get these Sangreal Guard squads a little bit bigger. Like, maybe this 3rd Death Company squad just needs to drop some of their special weapons, and we have us 2-6. How many command points are you starting with? 4. I mean, the problem with the bike captain, though, is he needs CP spent on him as well, right? Arguably 2, I think. But, I mean, the one thing I think the bike captain has over Mephiston is, I think my bike captain has over Dante. I think the bike captain is a much better carrier of Rites of War than, like, a Sangreal Priest, just because the bike captain will linger around and survive, and if he lingers around and survives, that Rites of War aura actually has a lot of value. So that's where I've been running my Rites of War, and I've actually had like pretty good success in some events with my captain having Rites of War. I like it a lot. I think Rites of War on a Sangreal Ancient is okay. I think Rites of War on a Priest is okay. When you put it on a really durable character, I think it becomes much better. But I mean, it's okay as it is, right? I understand that like some Blood Angels lists need Dante. Yeah, yeah. And I also like how the bike captain is the same points and he has the 3 damage weapon, right? So like, if you're into -1 damage enemies, obviously Dante suddenly becomes pretty weak, whereas a guy with Thunderhammer is always going to be decent, right? Yeah, the way I see it is my bike captain. If I spend 2 CP on him, let's say give him Rites of War and Soul Warden, he can go in toe to toe with most things, and usually he can just be a nuisance and he can't be ignored because he's got the Thunderhammer. And if he's with the squad of Sangreal Guard, it tends to just mean that like they'll just overrun an objective. Like Bike Captain and Sangard will kill most things in a single turn, and then I mean, I know some people put like Teeth of Terror on the Priest, but I think if you don't put Teeth of Terror on the Priest, then like the Priest is kind of terrible for damage. It's just like 6 chainsword attacks, which realistically against tougher targets is going to do like 1 damage. Maybe if you put Teeth of Terror on them, you can get like a few attacks through. So I don't love the, like, if you're Rites of Warring onto an objective with a priest, I feel like it's the priest. The priest's just there to give Rites of War, right? He's not doing any damage. In some ways, I feel the same way about the Sanguine Ancient. Like, sometimes I won't even get the Sanguine Ancient into melee combat because you don't want the retaliation. Whereas, like, I feel like I never have that problem with the Bite Captain. But, yeah, CP, man, it's hard. One thing of fire support is also hard to play well, because if you just have one thing and the enemy has a lot of fire, then they can just pick it off and then you're back to being full melee anyway. It's Blood Angels aren't in a great spot in my opinion at the moment. There's a lot that counters us, and yeah, it's nice to see that someone won an event, but I still think that we're like pretty averagely tier B army. You know, the new codexes have lots of ways of doing like a lot more damage, a lot more mortal wounds, and they obviously have like better named characters, I would say. We were talking about Hellwreck last night and how much better, how it's brilliant that he has a swipe and a sweep attack, and like it would be great if some of the Blood Angels characters had a swipe and a sweep attack, right? Um, I think here's the dilemma: is you either need to keep it as is, or you need to go much more heavy into like fire support, which could be like a couple of dreadnoughts or another speeder or a few land speeders or what did Steven run in Scepters, Plasma Inceptors? Or no, I think at the last minute he changed his mind and didn't run the Plasma Inceptors. Yeah, we are better than most Marines, Kevin. That's fair. But I don't think I mean, we're still on a 49% win rate when there's armies out there that are on a 60% win rate. And like I actually don't know how we beat Harlequins. Like, if they have everything in bolts, and they're all -1 to hit, and there's no rerolls to hit, and they're all in a 4-up save, then I think, I mean, unless you're wrapping and trapping their vehicles, which, like, if you look at Blood Angels lists, this is what we see normally, like, squads of 5, squads of 6 maybe, the odd squad of 7. Those is it the Void Weavers? The Void Spinners? I forget the name of the Harlequin transports. I don't play Harlequins all that much, but they're actually really difficult to wrap around. What are they called? Void. Are they on here? Is it the Void Weavers? No, the Weavers are the ones that shoot. What's the Star Weavers? Thank you. Because this isn't a brilliant picture. Can I get a better picture? Yeah, like 5 models, 5 infantry are really difficult. Ah, fuck off. Just open the picture. Why do you have to log in? Yeah, these wingtips here, if you think about it, like when they disembark, they need to be within 3 inches of the hull, right? So like these wingtips here actually make it like a real pain in the arse to try and wrap. Like I almost want to say that you can't wrap this with 5 models. Like you'd probably need 10 to be able to wrap it in terms of like kill it and not let anything disembark. And then you have to be really on point because yeah, I mean, I've been in tournaments where I was convinced, like, oh, I think I've wrapped this, and then I've actually killed it in the combat phase, and he still managed to get the whole 5-man out of it because I didn't quite wrap it well enough with the tips of those stupid wings. So yeah. I'd love to sub in intercessors as expensive as they are. Sanguinary Priest can res. Yeah, I mean, we really need to see intercessors, their rules changed so that ones don't kill models and they just do morals. Um, yeah, I mean, plasma fire for. I mean, Marines are still bottom of the pack, right? Like, our las cannons are d6 damage, whereas everybody else has got better las cannons. A lot of other people have better plasmas now. I don't know why we don't have better plasmas. We shouldn't be killing 60-point models on rules of ones. There's a lot. I don't know when we're going to get Marine updates, but yeah, I mean, we're not. I was going to say we're just not top of the pack. If Carter saying the winning list run 4 characters. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to run 4 characters as a Blood Angel player. If you're smart with your characters, because I mean, most of our characters move 12 inches, right, Carter? So you can easily, and I guess if you advance, you're moving a minimum of 14 inches. If you feel like you've lost 2 characters, you can probably try and hide the last 2, right? Um, that's another reason that like the bite captain is great. If he's on 1 wound, he can 20-inch advance, auto advance straight away from there. And I guess the same with other characters, right? Just get the fuck out of town. So I think 4 characters is less risky than over 100 models for no prisoners, because characters can be hidden. No prisoners, you kind of have to be out in the board doing stuff, right? Um, James says, I wish all of our troops would drop in points. Or troop selection is so overcosted. I think it's probably overcosted by at least 1 or 2 points per model, James. I couldn't agree more. Intercessors and cursors, assault intercessors, they're all very average units for the point you spend, for the points you spend on them, right? Alright, careful planning. List number 3 today. He says, looking to get my list reviews, been running at tournaments and getting trouble against Tyranids and Harleys. Yeah, I mean, Harleys, man, they're fucking. They were broken. The balance slate did nothing to fix them. I don't know how they balance Harlequins, honestly. Like, I don't know what Games Workshop needs to do to balance them, but like, every time I've played them, it's felt really obnoxious. What's actually really good against Harlequins is Null Zone, but like, no one runs Null Zone anymore. Like, very few people run Null Zone. And it's in some ways it's kind of like you can't run Null Zone, or sorry, it's hard to build a list to just be like, right, Harlequins are my big problem because I need Null Zone so I can beat Harlequins. And then what happens when you go to an event and you don't play when you don't play Harlequins and Null Zone doesn't do anything for you and you lose against someone else, you know, like not many people are running Null Zone. I mean, if we go back through the last like 20 armies that have been submitted, I'd be surprised if even one of them had Null Zone in it. But yeah, so if you are in your meta where there's a shitload of Harlequins and you're struggling against them, then pick the Librarian with a jump pack with Null Zone, and that will help a lot. I mean, you probably need to pick Psychic Mastery as well because you need Null Zone to be casted, and it only casts on a 7, which is generally pretty unreliable. So you need to lean into it, but that's one way to do it. Highland Phoenix still has Null Zone in the main list. Well, good for you, Highland, holding on to it. I was actually speaking to Gav about Null Zone, and he was saying that like he wouldn't go into Null Zone as a Blood Angel player because he feels like, well, when you come up against demons lists, it becomes worthless. and it's kind of the reason that you take that character. So it's that sort of like take all corners, troubley, whatever you want to call it. Okay, we've got Agent of the Imperium in this next list. This is from Careful Planning, and these are the Voidsmen. They are now 50 points. So you only get 5 of them, 50 points, but they are troops. So they will do Nachman data guaranteed. I think both those disciplines are underpowered. Honestly, Librarian discipline and Sangre discipline could both do with like better um, a better damaging power, like like one of these ones that all the other armies have, where they can just do like a 6 damage smite or 6 mortal wound power, whatever you want to call it. What's the best way to get extra infernal pistols for Sangard or Death Company? I mean, like, because you don't get enough in the box, basically. Bits. There's a few websites that sell bits in bulk, so that's probably the best way to look at it. We've got Commander Dante, who's the Warlord. We have the Chief Apothecary, Selfless Healer with the Teeth of Terra. So we're leaning into this Sanguinary Priest to do a little bit of damage. We've got Incursors and 2 Auto Bolt Rifle Intercessors. When you actually look at Auto Bolt Rifle Intercessors, on when you do the math, they kind of perform pretty poorly. I would much rather 2 Incursors and 1 squad of Assault Intercessors here. I was really unimpressed with the Auto Bolt Rifles in terms of how much damage they do. We've got the Death Company with 4 hammers. We've got the Ancient with Rites of War and Wrath of Baal. We've got 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard, and they're all 7s, 1 Infernal Pistol in each. Honestly, I'd probably put all the Infernal Pistols into 1 squad actually here. Or at least put 2 in 1, because when you just have 1 Infernal Pistol, it always feels like pretty swingy, right? Because you have to hit, you have to wound. So I think it's better to have like the squad that you position to get into combat quicker, or the squad that you get into combat last, like with more Infernal Pistols. I think 1 in a single squad is kind of meh. It's too unreliable. Whereas if you put like all of them into 1 squad, and then that's the squad you kept with the Chapter Master, then you can make that more reliable. We've got the Vanguard Veterans. This is a 10-man squad with all Lightning Claws and Chainswords, and I actually think this is a cool squad because you can combat squad it. They get a decent number of attacks, and they're also cheap. Not quite as cheap as like Death Company and stuff, but 25 points per model, and I think you get, excuse me, like 6 attacks per model at this point. 5 would be with a Lightning Claw and 1 would be with a Chainsword. So, I mean, if you don't combat squad this, you're getting 50 Lightning Claws and 10 Chainswords. I think it's a lot of attacks. We then have the Assault Squad with the Lightning Claw and Plasma Pistol, and the Sergeant with a Combat Shield. Honestly, I would probably do Power Sword and Infernal Pistol, but I guess it's personal preference. And then 2 guys with Plasma Pistols. Eliminators with Las Fusils. The Sergeant has the Bolt Sniper Rifle, which is random. It would definitely make it the Instigator Bolt Rifle so they can do the move, shoot, move. And that kind of rounds out the list. Okay. Is it possible to have a Master-crafted Relic Blade or Thunderhammer on a Firstborn Captain? You can do both, James. Well, obviously you can't do both at the same time, but yeah, you can Mastercraft a Relic Blade or you can Mastercraft a Thunderhammer. That's not an issue. I mean, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a Firstborn Captain. I think Primaris. I actually don't think Primaris captains can take Relic Blades. Maybe they can't take Thunderhammers either, actually. Yeah, actually, I don't think there is a Primaris captain that can take a Thunderhammer or a Relic Blade. The Primaris options need to be expanded. They need to be given more. I don't know why we're still 4 years into the Primaris release and you can't put a Thunderhammer on a Primaris model. Or a Jump Pad. I mean, at some point they need to really think about making the Primaris competitive. Jimmy says the Primaris options suck ass. Yeah, I mean, I guess they do. The squad, the lack of customization in the squad is really why I don't run very many Primaris models at all. And then the few that were good, they ended up getting the nerf bat. Thanks, Knight, for hanging out. I appreciate it. Yeah, go watch some of the Dreadnought videos I did. But yeah, I think you probably the Dreadnought that's going to get the most play at the moment is either a Contemptor or a Redemptor, I think. Um, okay, so we got three Sanguinary Guard, the Death Company, the big Vanguard Veterans, the Assault Squad, the Eliminators, which are arguably just going to hold the backfield, Intercessors to push forward. Yeah. Alright, so yeah, your trouble against Harlequins is probably because you're going to struggle to open up transports. Maybe you can open them up with the big 10-man squad, but then you have to really wrap them. And Harlequins tend to just dish out a ton of mortal wounds, and they tend to be really survivable with their 4-up army-wide saves, so your AP kind of becomes worthless. You don't have Soul Ward in here. Okay. I mean, in this case, this is the sort of list where I would say like a captain on a bike with Soul Warden might be better. The Teeth of Terra and Selfless Healer and the Priest, I guess, makes sense. Harlequins are very, very fast, though. So, like, they probably move faster than us. They can dictate the engagements. Our models tend to not survive all that well against either their ranged weapons or their melee. So it becomes like a trading game. You know, maybe in this situation you need to drop one squad of Sandguard and replace it with like that Death Company, which is like 5 Infernal Pistols, 5 Power Fists, Power Swords, sorry. Because 5 Infernal Pistols could definitely open up a transport, or they could help a lot with that. If you did that as well, you'd gain like 60, 70 points. So I think you could probably do something with those 60, 70 points as well. Like, I'm trying to think what would be best to do with the 60 or 70 points. I mean, if you're just going to run 2 Las Fusils, then I'd probably swap them out for a Whirlwind, just because then you get the ability to do some fight last. Anyone practice Integration of Bile? Everyone fight on death kills my army, says James. Yes, fight on death is one of the main reasons that I don't run an all melee Blood Angels list, James. I think it's a fucking stupid rule. I'm probably over bitter about it because I really thought our last balanced data slate was going to help us more than it did. Yeah, I also think I mean, if anyone should fight on death, it's the bloody Death Company. You know, they see Horus, they don't care about any injuries that they've sustained. They just want to kill everything. So, like, why do Death Company not get a fight on death like all the other armies get fight on death nonsense? I'd even pay some CP for that because refusal to die on the Death Company is the most useless stratagem in the game. Never use refusal to die on the Death Company. Like, the squats are getting a 4-up feel no pain on their I forget the name of the unit. On their version of the Repentia, on their cyborgs, I think it is. So yeah, if the squats are getting a 4-up feel no pain, why the hell does Death Company have to pay 1 CP for refusal to die? Yeah, I mean, refusal to die is just a poor strat. Like, the amount of times I've played refusal to die and it's not helped me at all. The Death Company have still died, and now what I do is I just look at the rolls and be like, every time the Death Company get targeted, I'm like, oh well, I'm glad I didn't play refusal to die because they would have died anyway. Yeah, okay. So overall, I mean, this list is fine. It's a decent Blood Angels list. It's all melee, so we know that like you can lean into the all melee, and it's a strong list. It can do a lot of damage, but you know, if you come up against a full fight on death enemy, or you come up against like good Sisters of Battle players, or even Harlequin players, or stuff like that, and I mean, he does have a bigger squad here, and he does have some decent sized squad of Sangre Guard. My my experience of those damned Void Weavers, Star Weavers, sorry, Star Weaver top down view. Can I actually get a top down view? Star Weaver. My experience of fighting these though is like I would actually want to know how many models you need. Like, yeah, okay. I mean, this is a pretty decent size. This is a pretty decent image, right? Can I like blow this up? Yeah. I don't know if I can draw shapes. Yeah, I can draw shapes. Can I? I don't want a square. I want a circle. How do I do a circle? Circle. Yeah, so like if you start trying to you know, do your 2-inch coherency, and you have to, you know, I think it would be something like this, right? But you also have to be super careful because like 3 inches from this tip suddenly becomes like, oh, I can't draw outside it. God, this paint program sucks. Give me what is this paint program? Like, I just wanted to open paint. I didn't need some stupid paint program. Yeah, like 3 inches from here is probably out here. So if you think like 2 inches to here, and then a line, like sometimes they can, using these stupid tips of the wings, they can put their models like this. And even though you manage to like surround this thing with everything, thinking, oh, you know, I've been really smart here, it's really fucking difficult with these stupid wing tips. Because I was in a tournament and I had this thing surrounded, and I was thinking to myself, there's no way he can place all his models. So once I kill it, everything inside will die. But no, there was like a bit from the wingtip where he was like able to get the guys. Yeah, it was horrible. So I mean, I don't know how many, and I think I honestly had 2 units charge that Weaver. So like, yeah, Harleys, man. That combined with the fact that they're -1 to hit and they're all in 4 vulnerable saves. Chris says he thinks the Sangre Ancient is overcosted at 125 points. I mean, he is. Sorry, he's only 110 now, but he was overcosted at 125. Yeah, he's probably still a little bit costly at 110, right? Yeah, so I mean, these lists are all fine. Like, these are fine lists to run. These lists can beat a lot of people, but they can become unstuck. And I know they become unstuck because I've become unstuck to win an event before with a list like this. So, all right, let's move on to Chris's list. Give us a shout in the chat if you've got anything to say, Chris. All right, so this is a 2CP 2,000 point list. We've got the company veterans. I don't think you need jump pack legends. I mean, these guys just don't have jump packs. I guess. All right, you've put jump packs on them. They can't if you're playing competitively. They can't have jump packs. I think you'd save like 2 points per model. So you'd spend 40 points there. I think it's 4 points for a storm shield, so you can maybe have the sergeant with a storm shield and a chainsword, and another guy I honestly think if you're going to run veterans, just run them double chainsword. Like a bolt pistol is going to do nothing really. I think you're better just going 2 chainswords on the veterans. Oh right, yeah, or well, you caught up with me, Chris. Yeah, or you could put a lightning claw in the sergeant. Yeah, something like that would be better. Okay, you got the captain on the bike with Soul Warden. You've given him a grav pistol, an armor indomitus. I mean, I like armor indomitus and Soul Warden on the captain. I think I would give him the infernal pistol, though. I mean, I don't really see what's good about a grav pistol. What's he got weapon wise? A Thunderhammer. Alright, 165 points. Standard. You got the Tech Marine who's Master of the Forge, so we're repairing 3 per turn. If you're going to run a Primaris Tech Marine, he is a really good model to carry Quake Bolts if you need it. Obviously, you might not need it, but yeah, just keep in mind he's a great model to carry Quake Bolts because his Forge Bolter is an assault weapon, meaning he can assault and still do Quake Bolts, and he has 24 inches on that, which is nice. You got Sanguine Ancient, who's the Chief Apothecary with Rights of War. Okay. I like that you split Rights of War and the Ancient and the Chapter Master has Soul Warden. I like having these split across multiple characters, so I like that. Incursors ×2 Assault Intercessors, which is fine. It's what I run. I think it's decent. It's very strong. You've got the Death Company with 4 hammers. You got the Death Company with 5 Infernal Pistols and 5 Power Swords. You got 7 Sanguinary Guard with 1 Infernal Pistol. You got 6 Sanguinary Guard with 1 Infernal Pistol. I'd probably put both Infernal Pistols in the same squad. Just, that seems to be the way they work for me. You've got an Assault Squad. Sergeant has Lightning Claw and Plasma Pistol. Lightning Claw is fine. I think I'd rather a Power Sword. I think we probably wound pretty reliably with a Power Sword, and it's got more EP than the Lightning Claw. Eviscerator on 1 Marine is fine as well. It's a fine way to spend 5 points. I think I'd probably put the Infernal Pistol though on the Sergeant. I think because I just never fire Plasma Pistols at high power, right? So if you're never going to fire a Plasma Pistol at high power, then I think you're better just having a Melta Pistol, or I call it Melta Pistol, an Infernal Pistol, because the Plasma is only ever really going to do 1 damage. You have a Land Speeder with a Multi-Melta, which I think Land Speeders and Multi-Meltas at 70 points are decent. They obviously can move a lot. Multi-Meltas are never to be sniffed at. And then you've got the Kratos with the Battle Cannon, the 2 Volkite Cavaliers, the 2 Volkite Coverings, and the Combi Volkite. It's been a little while since I looked at the Kratos. Let me just bring it up. Kratos. I've seen someone else play the Battle Cannon, Kratos at the tournament. The Battle Cannon is what? Battle Cannon. Oh yeah, so it's heavy 6 plus 3. So 4 to 9 shots. -2/3 damage. I mean that's very decent. Or you get the 1 high armor piercing shot. I think I'd probably always just shoot the heavy 6 plus D3 unless I suppose you're fighting toughness 8 maybe. And I guess the nice thing about that means if someone does get you in combat, you could just shoot the Kratos in combat. You have to shoot the big armor piercing round, but that would work. 2 Volkite Cavaliers, 2 Volkite Coverings. The Volkite Cavalier are strength 6 -2. Sorry, strength 6 0 -2. The Culverin are the ones that are on the Dreadnoughts. So you're going to get 12 strength 6, 0 AP. And you've got the Tech Marine, so you can be hitting on 2s. You also have a combi Volkite on there, which is like, what, another couple of Volkite shots? Yeah, okay, so you got like 14 Volkite shots. And then the Battle Cannon. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. The Kratos can never be obscured, right? Because it's 18 wounds. Which maybe is a weakness to me. And also you're going to have to spend 1 CP to include it. Within 6 inches, it's D6 mortal wounds when this thing explodes. So that's pretty brutal if it does explode. Highland Phoenix says you could take an infiltrator squad. I don't know, Highland. I mean, it helps you against demons. Are demons... I mean, I only have played the one... I've only played demons once, I guess, and I beat them. So, but, I mean, I need to play other demons, not just Nurgle. I don't know if I'll get a shot to play them at this tournament coming up, but... I was going to say, I don't know if I feel like you need to take infiltrators, and I guess in some ways this is oh, it's maybe like well, it's just like, can you build a list that's going to compete against everything? Infiltrators are, they have their uses, but I guess most of the time they're not needed, right? I suppose you could say the same about you know, I suppose you could say the same about like Soul Warden. Like, I often tell people, like, Soul Warden is one of the most important things that we can run. Well, you can come up against an army that does no mortal wounds to you, and Soul Warden can do nothing. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue you don't need Soul Warden. You could argue you don't need infiltrators. Um, it's a personal preference, I suppose, or it's just what you expect to play against. The Kratos for 320 points, 18 wounds, toughness 8, 2 up save. Is that right? The clocks went back today, so I guess for me it's actually supposed to be quarter to midnight just now. I mean, I don't. Does it have crushing tracks as well? Oh, really? It doesn't have crushing tracks? How sad. So it's got no melee weapon. Huh. I mean, it's a pretty giant tank. I feel like it should have a melee weapon. Yeah, I mean, like, can this not run you over? There is something to be said about taking a Tech Marine for just one vehicle, because the Tech Marine gives +1 to every weapon on that vehicle. So that's why, like, if you take a Tech Marine on a super heavy tank, there's a lot of value there, right? Because, like, he's making all the weapons +1. So in some ways, having the Tech Marine here for this tank also really helps. I guess it can smoke screen. I'm actually surprised. I did not realize this doesn't have the machine spirit keyword. So you can never operate on full profile if it gets profiled. There's no stratagem to do that. The Kratos seems fine. I like having some fire support in a Blood Angels list. The battle cannon seems versatile. 14 Volkite shots hitting on 2s is going to do some mortal wounds every turn. Those Volkites have pretty decent range, right? I think the Coverns have like 45. The Cavaliers have 30. Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's going to spit out a bit of mortals. It probably needs dealt with the opponent. You can heal it. You can make it hit on 2s. It possibly also keeps you like kind of lower for no prisoners as well, because you only have 4 elites, right? Because you've spent like 320 points on fire support. I don't mind the Kratos tank. I think in some ways, though, a list like this, I wouldn't say the tank becomes a liability, because I don't think it is a liability. If the enemy ignore it, it can do a lot of work and it can win you the game. If the enemy have enough to kill that tank in like turn 1 and 2, and you don't get a lot of value out of it, it can really put you on the back foot, right? Because once the tank dies, the Tech Marine kind of loses a lot of his value, and the fact that you can't obscure it because it's over 18 wounds can be quite scary. Again, like if you're playing against Tau, I don't know, and they've got a bunch of those rail cannons, they might just take it out before you ever get to use it, right? And that's why when I ran the super heavy tank recently, I ran the Astraeus, because the Astraeus has those void shields that kind of buy it a turn of survivability at range. So yeah, you just have to be aware of that like you kind of want to deploy the Kratos as far back as possible, so that if you don't go first, the enemy aren't just going to be able to take it out. And I guess some armies potentially will be able to take it out anyway, so you just have to, the fact it can't be obscured. I mean, if you play devil's advocate and let's say you were using like a repulsor executioner or something like that, it probably can't be obscured either because it's so fucking big and tall, right? So like, I don't know if the fact that it's just on those 18 wounds so it can't be obscured is that big a deal. But I guess like and I prefer this because like everyone was just saying 10 minutes ago that like if you come up against an enemy that has a squad that's fight on death and you know that you really don't want to trade with them, then you could just shoot everything from the tank into that fight on death enemy and just be like, fuck it. I just need those fight on death models to be dead because they trade way too efficiently with Blood Angels. So I like having fire support. I think there's value in it. I also like how it sets your list up that you're not so terrain dependent, because in some smaller cities, smaller events, terrain can be less. I'll be right back, just one sec. But yeah, so I think that like 400 points, if you think the land speeder and the Kratos is the fire support, I think that's fine. You can't be strong against everything. It's a trade-off. It's like if you do this, then you're good in some scenarios, but you maybe do worse in other scenarios. There's no perfect list. The Kratos is only 20 more points than the Repulsor Executioner. I think the Executioner is probably just really inefficiently point cost knucking futs. I think that's because you could put 10 models inside the Repulsor. Oh no, maybe not the Executioner actually. I don't have a. I've got a regular Repulsor, and I fielded it like 2 times. Like, shame on me for buying it. It can take Gravis models inside it, but I mean, nobody runs them. No one puts Gravis inside them. The Executioner can actually take 6 models. Oh, I didn't realize that. So you could put a squad of aggressors inside a. So I think that's probably why it's so expensive. I mean, it does have a D3+3 weapon on it, which, like, nothing in the Marine Army has a D3+3. It feels like. Yeah, like, very few things have D3+3. Does it? And it gets +1 to hit on the D3+3, I guess. But then I think I prefer the battle cannon. Like, what was it, like D6+3 for the number of shots? Strength 7 minus 2, 3 damage. So the most damage this ever could do is 12. The most damage the battle cannon could ever do would be 7 threes, 21. What was the damage on the if you did high power? D3+6. Okay, yeah. I think high explosive makes sense to me. You're strong against everything except toughness 8 and above. I guess I suppose the Executioner doesn't require the Tech Marines though, right? Because you get the +1 to hit on the main cannon. But like, no one's running Executioners, especially not Blood Angels players. No one's running Repulsors either, I guess. Armor in general is just bad. Um, I was looking at the Gladiator Valiant because I have the Gladiator now, and like honestly, when I looked at the Gladiator Valiant, it was like 200 points, and all its weapons are D6 damage. I was like, oh god. I mean, and like they're all 24 inches as well, so it's like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Marine armor is in such a poor position. Um, I can't really see much reason to pick marine armor at the moment at all. Uh, Armor that has a 2-up save is a little bit more attractive. But then, I mean, if we go back to your list there, it actually might make sense to take. I was going to say you don't have a Psyker, okay. If you did have a Psyker, it might make sense to take Shield of Sanguinius. Because like a 2-up save, even with Armor of Contempt, can still become a 6+ suddenly pretty badly, pretty fast, I think. We all agree armor has issues. Yeah, I mean, armor has issues, but like, armor doesn't mean you can't win games. I went to that. I took the super heavy tank to GT, and I had a lot of fun. And if it hadn't fluffed quite so many times, I think I could have actually maybe come like top 3, maybe even second. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that's the thing that's why core is probably just a lot better because, and that's why I always find myself paying the extra points for a chapter master because even if you hit on 2s, it's still very easy to roll like 3 1s and suddenly your weapon damage feels bad, right? Whereas if you have core / chapter master rerolls, then that can sort of keep you in the game sometimes. Sometimes it can be really valuable, you know? Like the amount of times that maybe you have like 10 hits with chapter master rerolls and you maybe have a pretty good hit chance, like 3+, 4+ or something, you miss like 8 of them and the fucking chapter master saves you. Like that happens to me quite a few times, whereas like a tech marine doesn't save you. That's why the double contemptor I think for Blood Angels was so good with the tech marine because you made one of the contempt or double redemptor. You made one of them hit on 2s and reroll 1s because you need the chapter master, and you made the other one just reroll everything with chapter master rerolls, and then you had 2 super reliable dreadnoughts, right? And in some ways, 2 super reliable dreadnoughts may actually still be better than the Kratos. And they obviously don't get profiled if they're contemptors, but they're obviously going to cost more CP. So there's would I take a Kratos over, let's say, 2 Volcon contemptors, which are 20 points more and 1 CP more, but like, what do they get? Like 32 Volkite shots against 14? Probably the battle cannon and the Kratos maybe sort of evens those things out, but I think either way is fine. If you wanted to do double Volcon, you could still do that. I think it's decent. I just don't necessarily think there's any armor out there that's like, hey, this is amazing, this is the best pick. Alright. Kevin's list is next, and he's building a Death from Above / Fury of the Lost build. I don't think I've ever played Death from Above. Maybe I need to try it at some point. I hope you enjoy this list. I think it just about every spot I could think of in this building. Comfortably run, Relentless Assault, or behind enemy lines. Death from Above, Fury of the Lost, banners. I have a large amount of pressure. I have multiple units that can store, retrieve and my data. Relentless Assault is easy if I go first. Death from Above, I will deep strike 3 units if I need to be and put another unit into deep strike if I need a scoring unit. Relentless Assault is usually scored in the first 2 turns and the last 2 turns for me. Okay. Sudante have Heroic Bearing the Warlord, Chaplain on the Bike, Litany of Faith, Canticle of Hate, Icon of the Angel, and he is the Wise Orator. And then we've got the Sanguinary Priest, who is the Chief Apothecary with Armor and Domus. Interesting to take Chief Apothecary and Armor and Domus, but okay. My Apothecary, usually when he focuses, he dies pretty quickly. Assault intercessors and cursors, infiltrators. This seems to be more common now. It used to be assault intercessors and 2 incursors seems to be the most common. Now it seems that a lot of people have gone back and put in a squad of infiltrators. I can only assume to help deal with demons. We got Death Company with 4 hammers. We got a 10-man Death Company with 4 hammers, 3 infernals, and 4 power swords. We have a 3rd Death Company with infernal power sword combo. We have 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard, 2 7s, and a 6. And that's the list. So the list is the 3 Death Company and the 3 Sandguard. Dante, a chaplain, and a priest, and then your 3 troop choices. Okay. Surprised to see that, like, he's doing Fury of the Lost with only 3 units. I guess one of them being 10-man Death Company, but he doesn't have any. I guess he's got heroic on Dante, heroic bearing to help a little bit with leadership, but like leadership 8 on the Death Company, or leadership 7 with +1 becoming 8, it still feels pretty rough. Okay, I mean, 3 Death Company, 3 Sandguard, like that is the core. That is the whole list basically. It's decent. I mean, his weapon options, his loadouts are very decent. These are top picks. These are the picks that I would probably take if it was me and I had all these weapon options painted. The priest, Dante, and the chaplain to get things into combat more quickly makes sense. A little sad that there's no fight last or whatever. No Overwatch denial. They're just the basic troops that are needed to hold. So I mean, it really comes down to. I was going to say, can 3 squads of Sandguard and 3 squads of Death Company with no fight shenanigans or anything like that, can they win games? Can they win events? Well, apparently we've just been told that they can win events. But I mean, if you're playing against Eldar, like Miles' list that had like 4 fight lasts, I hate this list into that list. You know, the night that I played Miles when he had that 4 fight last, I never got to fight with a single squad of Sanguinary Guard the whole game, even though I made like, I think 2 times I charged, once he charged, and I never got to fight. Or maybe I got a fight with 1 model left after he decimated the squad. So yeah, I think that like if this was me, I would put in something that I think I like what they're saying in chat. Like, I would swap out the chaplain and the bike for Astaroth or Lamartis. I'd probably do Astaroth because I feel like it's better for the big squads of Death Company with morale. But I also think that like, or I feel like you need something in the list to manipulate the fight phase. And I mean, I guess you can try and sacrifice some of your characters to manipulate the fight phase. But I think that's like super high level play, and I think it's actually super difficult to do. If you're doing Fury of the Lost and Death from Above Lamartis as an auto include, yeah, because I mean, he's going to give you Icon of the Angel sort of for free for your Death Company, and he's also going to count as another model for your Fury of the Lost, right? So like, probably swap Lamartis out for this chaplain on the bike. I would agree with that, I think. I think it would also give you 30 points. I guess you could use that 30 points to make the 3rd squad of Sanguinary Guard a 7. And yeah, I don't love deep strike charges either. They're not reliable. An 8-inch or a 9-inch charge with her +1 on deep strike with a reroll is 66%. And like if I can avoid doing that, I will, because I hate winning or losing the game on a 66% roll. And even though like 66% should happen more often than it fails, I just don't I feel like I'm a good player in terms of like how I play the game, so I just don't like trying to, I guess, win the game doing like charge that might work, right? Like it might work, it might not, right? So yeah, honestly, Kevin, not my favorite sort of list. I mean, all the units are good. The synergy is pretty decent. You'll kill stuff if you make charges. If the enemy have no way of making you fight last. Um, everything seems fine. The weapon options are good, but like I think that like maybe like Repentia, for example, or those new squats that fight on death, or even space wolves. Like this list is actually going to struggle into all those because you can't trade efficiently across this list. You're always going to lose models because of the fight on death. And then yeah, I mean the Eldar list with like 3 fight lasts. Ugh. Ugh. Yeah, everything in the score is fine. Kevin, I think you just depends what your meta is. If you're fighting into those armies, then I just like it. Um, you could try and squeeze in the whirlwind, says Highland Phoenix. Yeah, and I mean that's why we've seen a few lists that are all jump units, all melee units, but just that whirlwind in there, just for the utility that the whirlwind brings. And I mean, I probably wouldn't run a full like even if we talk about an all melee list, I'm probably still going to put that whirlwind in there, right? And then everything else is melee. Highland Phoenix. All right, 2,000 point list, 3 CP for PJ Murray. He's got Dante's the Warlord. He's got your Null Zone, Psychic Scourge, Psychic Mastery, Armor Indomitus, and then we've got the Rites of War Sanguinary Priest. We've got the standard Assault Intercessors and Cursors ×2. We got Death Company with 5 hammers. We got 2 7-man Sangguard and 1 Infernal Pistol and 1. We have a Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, Terminator Squad with 2 Lightning Claws guys. We have those attack bikes with multi meltas. We have the whirlwind in there, and then we've got the Vanguard veterans with mainly lightning claws, but an infernal pistol, relic blade on the sergeant. I like this list more because obviously the bikes are core, so they benefit from chapter master rerolls. The whirlwind is there to mess with the shenanigans a bit. You've got the Death Company and the 2 Sangguard. You also have the Vanguard veterans and the Terminators. I assume the Terminators are starting in Deep Strike. I like the Assault Terminators. I think they're decent. You've got the Priest there. Resurrecting a Terminator is always good. You've got Null Zone as well, which I guess will help into some matches. Harlequins being a very difficult matchup for us to deal with. So having Null Zone there is probably super useful. And we're starting on 3 CP, which is also decent. 5 elite melee units. And then the 3 characters. Yeah, so I mean this is very similar to the RTT where I came second. Or third, sorry. Because I basically had this same list where the only fire support I had was the Whirlwind and 1 squad of Eradicators, which were like 135 points, right? And then everything else I had in that list was melee. Let me pull that list up for a second. I think I actually even had Vanguard Veterans that list as well. Yeah, here we go. So what was my list for this? It was the Captain on the Bike and Mephiston. It was Assault Intercessors and Cursors. Death Company with Hammers. I was running the Ancient with Rights of War and Wrath of Baal. 7 Sandguard, 6 Vanguard, 5 Assault Terminators, 5 Vanguard Veterans. Oh, I had a Land Speeder in there as well. I tell a lie. But I mean, I guess the Land Speeder plus Eradicators are kind of the same cost as the bikes, right? So this was essentially a full melee list. 1 Death Company, 2 Sandguard, Vanguard Veterans, Terminators. And yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, this was before Nephilim. But yeah, so I obviously felt straight. So really the only difference between this and my list was like I had a Land Speeder and 3 Eradicators. You have 3 attack bikes. And I guess rather than the Null Zone Librarian, I had the Sangre Ancient. But I mean, all those things are pretty interchangeable. There's no right or wrong answer there, right? Oh, and I guess rather than the Priest, I had Mephiston, but that was before Nephilim, and before Nephilim, we were very easily able to spend the 2 CP for adaptive strategy on your Forlorn Fury guys to get the Assault Doctrine up. Could Mastercraft the Sergeant's Thunderhammer and the Death Company? I mean, I could get on board with that. Knight went down a rabbit hole. He settled on the Contemptor, but I also find myself watching people sculpt some really odd stuff like the Great Clean One on the breast on the Dreadnought. So yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean the Contemptor or the Redemptor was what I thought you should pick. I actually think it's fine to run 5 Thunderhammers, but yeah, I mean I honestly I guess I have to play against Belkador and all that demon nonsense to see. The thing is, if you're going to use the Whirlwind to screen in the backfield, then you're gonna need to use your infiltrators right next to your Whirlwind, right? Because the demon's deep striking is only as weak as like your highest leadership. So they can potentially deep strike within the leadership of the Whirlwind. I imagine the Whirlwind is like leadership 8. I can't imagine it would be 9. What is the... Yeah, because I mean the Valiant's 8. So okay, I mean some people definitely feel like there's value in infiltrators now. Um, 2 7-man Sandguard squads is good. The Terminators is good. The Vanguard veterans with Lightning Claws, weaker than they were, but still useful. Attack bites with multi-meltas, definitely still useful. If you've got a priest, then the attack bikes are always going to be decent as well. What's the Giants score right now, JT Money? I saw earlier was 7-all before I started streaming. I've changed my mind on infiltrators purely because of demons. So what do you think? Are you running 1 squad of infiltrators now, Reziel, or multiple squads? The Terminators need a teleport homer. I mean, the teleport homer is always useful on the Terminators, that's for sure. But I mean, in practice, I find that like you only ever use the teleport homer in like 1 or 4 or 5 games. So maybe it's like it's one of those things where like you can probably just go without it. The Martyrs List Death Company Marines uses leadership. Does that go for Demon Deep Strike? I mean, it probably does. I would just... Oh, wow, the Giants are up 27-13? Damn. Or are you taking the piss out of me? Are the Giants down 27-13? Ah. The way you said it, looking good for the Giants, I thought we were going to be winning. You troll. Okay. I mean, we've scraped the last few games. We haven't. I don't know if we're really good enough to be 6-1. It's been a bit of luck. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, this list is very similar to a list I ran at a tournament. I think it's totally fine. Unfortunately, the tournament I ran it to, the top table had really shitty terrain, and the whole middle of the board had very little cover on it, and I lost the game. Well, I think he had two ways of. I think he had two fight lasts, and he also had two units that fight on death, and the terrain was bad. And then he had a chapter. He had a successor chapter that was actually really smart with the list that he had. So yeah, maybe I was too quick to throw this away. Maybe it was just a really bad matchup for Blood Angels. But yeah, I mean, I took this pretty much the exact list to tournament and very nearly almost won it. So what would you suggest for heavy support? The Whirlwind. Out of all the vehicles that we can run, the Whirlwind is the one that I typically always run. Look up this. Surely, if you just search Blood Angels Commander Whirlwind, I'll have done a video on the Whirlwind. I must have done that. Okay. Yeah. So that is tonight's army list show. It seems like a lot of people are just. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say carbon copies, but there's a lot of the same. People are determined to make this full Blood Angels list work, which is fine. I mean, people keep trying it. It seems like someone has done it now. If they have done it now, I'll check out Discord and I'll check out the list that won this tournament, and maybe we can break that down in another video. But yeah, I'm going to take off tonight. It's kind of late, and yeah. I mean, I don't know what I feel like, because the way I feel about 40k at the moment is Blood Angels are in a very frustrating place where if you do want to take that full melee list, there's a lot of things that are going to counter you. And it's like a case of, are you fine to just be countered? Sure. Or are you going to try and find something else? I don't know. I feel like to myself, like I don't just want to run 3 Sandguard and 3 Death Company and cross my fingers and hope that I don't come up against a list that I can't beat, right? So yeah, I mean, I guess it's nothing to do about skill, Reziel. Like, if you come up against Space Wolves where they have multiple ways of fighting last, they have multiple units of fighting on death, like, what skill is there, right? Like, even if you wipe the units, they'll just kill you anyway, right? So like, there's there's almost nothing you can do. So I don't know. I mean, like, go to a tournament, cross your fingers that you're not going to fight one of those armies, or cross your fingers that, like, when you do fight one of those armies, you're just going to roll really good on the dice. I mean, I never typically roll that well on the dice when I go to events, so yeah, I'd rather. And I mean, I guess that's why I don't. Like I said, I don't like to hinge my winning or losing in a game on a 66% charge, which I guess like does happen 2 out of 3 times, right? Angel sacrifices needed against wolves. It's needed, I agree, but remember they can activate, so they can pile in away from your character. So if they're a competent player, they're not gonna end in engagement range with your character, because why would they, right? And they fight on death. So in reality, it's really, really difficult to position a unit of models, bear in mind that you need to move and make a charge roll to basically like neuter their fight on death. Because I've tried to do it. I've known about it. I've played it at the top table of an event, and then I've played Andrew on stream like a few weeks later, and I've tried to position my death company in a way that like his Repentia couldn't fight on death, and like maybe you can stop one of them fighting or something like that. Like you'll never stop enough of the retaliation of fight on death. Um, but yeah, I guess that's an argument for another day. I am going to head off. I will have a look at the this tournament winning list and see if we can break it down. Um, we need a cheap chainsaw death company or assault squad to trade fight on death. You know, I tried that very thing in that event, Carl, because I knew I threw a squad of assault intercessors into a squad of Wolven because I knew the Wolven would fight on death. I wasn't willing to risk my Sanguinary Guard into them because I was like, they'll trade against me, and I can't lose like 180 point Sanguinary Guard for 100 point of Wolven. So I tried to put like another squad into them, and they didn't do enough damage, and the Wolven killed them anyway, and it fucked me. But like, I think if I don't know. In hindsight, maybe I should have sacrificed the Sangre Guard. But then, I mean, I'd literally have had to cross my fingers like this behind my back and go like, all right, so you hit me on twos, and every six burst two additional hits. I get -1 to hit, so I just need you to roll a bunch of ones and twos, and maybe I can have my Sangre Guard survive. Like, um, it feels tough. Angels, Tears, Vanguard veterans with dual infernal pistols to shoot them at 12 inches. Yeah, I mean, if you bring in Horus Heresy models, I guess. Yeah, if you haven't seen that video was called Masterclass, and it would have been Masterclass Part 2. So, if you go to YouTube, Blood Angels Commander, and hit like search and just type Masterclass, um, and just watch part two. That was basically like the game where I played against Space Wolves at the top table, where I don't know, I had that list that was there at the end, and I failed. I failed. I must have failed, or I must have been so frustrated at that game that I was like, "Fuck it, I'm never running full melee again." Right? Like, I've got to the top table of an event, I've got a chance of winning it, and then I just come up against something that just completely counters everything I can do, and yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not in a great mood right now with after getting like absolutely trounced by Gavin's Knights this on Wednesday, where it's like it's another just horrendous matchup for Blood Angels, which is which is leading to frustration when the battle balance data slate has done literally nothing for us. Yeah. Um. Cool. Good evening, Reaper Dan. You caught me like 2 seconds before I'm finishing my stream, so hopefully you can catch me in the next one. Double fight strat on the assault intercessors. Um, I actually don't know the interaction there. Would they get to fight on death before the assault intercessors get to fight a second time? I think so. And I honestly think that like the fight on death, sorry, the fight again strat for assault intercessors should really be like 1 CP for a 5-man squad and 2 CP for the 10-man squad. Because at the moment I think it's just flat 2 CP. So I mean, you typically don't see 10-man assault intercessors squads, so it should be a 1-2 sort of thing. only the ones who live fight twice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought so, Mike. So yeah, it wouldn't have been that good then because I think that the Wolven fighting on death killed like 4 of the assault intercessors, and I think it was like an 8-man squad of Wolven. So maybe I killed like 4 of them, and then on the retaliation, I lost most of my squad. So it ended up being like I basically traded my squad for, well, not enough, not enough. Um, Knights would suck against Nullzone, by the way. Um, yes and no. I mean, we only wound them in 4s, and they can transhuman, so it will help against the invulnerable part of it for sure. These Knights the Death Company does well, so you can max 3 secondaries. Uh, yeah, well, I mean, I'll have a new list for Wednesday night. I've got the squats on Wednesday night, and we'll see how we get on. Um, hopefully, I mean, Andrew City absolutely trounced Colin with the squats, so hopefully he doesn't trounce me, because if I get trounced, I don't know how I'm going to feel going into this event, honestly. Yeah. But my GT is like next weekend, not the 6th weekend after. All right, enjoy your evening, guys. I'll try and be more positive, but I'm just not feeling it right now. I really really frustrated with the balanced data slate, like beyond frustrated with it, honestly. All right, talk to you guys later. Peace.